solving this mystery can be murder.
Welcome to Now Playing Podcast Review of Clue.
We're trying to find out who killed him and where and with what.
Part of our board game movie retrospective series.
We gotta know who did it. We're all in this together now.
Hosted by Justin.
I'll go first. I've had a good life.
Stuart.
I mean, nobody could blackmail me. My life is an open book. I've never done anything wrong.
And Arnie.
He was always a rather stupidly optimistic man. I mean, I'm afraid it came as a great shock to him when he died.
But be warned, this episode will contain detailed plot spoilers and mildly objectionable language.
What are you afraid of? A fate worse than death?
No, just death. Isn't that enough?
We hope you enjoy the show.
Very well. I know who did it.
You do?
And furthermore, I'm going to tell you how it was all done.
Today, we're discussing Clue, starring Eileen Brennan, Tim Curry, Madeline Kahn, Christopher Lloyd, Michael McKean, Martin Mull, Lesley Ann Warren, directed by Jonathan Lynn. This is the Now Playing co-host who's like Kleenex, soft, strong, and disposable, Arnie.
And Stuart.
And this is the host that positively tries to not be doubly negative, Justin.
You mean you have photographs?
I promised myself I wouldn't turn this into a quote fest, but if we're going to start off.
You know, here we are reviewing Clue, a movie I thought we would never do on the podcast. I put it in our underrated movies book. This, counting the book, is now our third time talking about Clue.
Yeah. Yes. Let's really call out something really important. The reason why we're talking about Clue is because we've decided to cover every movie that was ever based on a board game. Because every movie based on a video game has gone so well. I just can't get enough.
Wait a minute, that's why I'm here.
It helps that you have suffered through so much Uwe Boll, who has made none of them. I just want to point out.
Good.
Yeah, we are going to be looking at all the board game movies, which there were far less of when we wrote our book. I remember I was like, there was Battleship, Ouija, and Clue back then, and now it looks like we've got some more to discuss, although we're throwing in Jumanji, which I didn't really consider back then, and looking at Dungeons and Dragons, which I didn't necessarily consider a board game, but it's a tabletop game, I guess.
Yeah, basically, if it's not on your TV screen, it's a board game, and you're playing it, yeah, whatever. Tiddlywinks, they make Pin the Tail on the Donkey. We're covering that movie now.
I'm surprised The Rock hasn't starred in a Jenga adaptation, you know, with a building falling down, and he's running, trying to stop it from falling. I could see that actually happening.
The Rock in Connect 4.
But we are starting with the first board game movie, Clue. Yes, if you joined us during our watch-alongs during COVID, we actually covered Clue then. We didn't review it. We did just kind of a live watch-along. And Jason, our associate producer, actually got us a shout-out from Lesley Ann Warren that led that off. He purchased it through Cameo, so Lesley Ann Warren gave Now Playing a shout-out.
Yeah, it's not kind, but how much do you think Lesley Ann Warren costs to do Cameo? I'm thinking single digits, but maybe I'm wrong. She is Oscar nominated.
$350.
Okay, you go, girl. If you can get that, and apparently you can. You did.
From Jason.
Yes. Yeah, Clue is a bright spot to start at. I think we all had positive feelings during that time. It was just a fun time. You know, it's a party movie. It's about people getting together, and it's got this manic comedy energy to it. We all got together at kind of a depressing time. And yeah, I really did enjoy doing that live cast because I think that was the first time I had seen Clue in decades. You know, it was a movie that I saw in theaters and then watched repeatedly on cable. I actually believe I bought a blank VHS tape and actually hit the record button and had that one in my private library for some time.
I remember this movie coming out so vividly. It came out in December of 1985, and mid-December at that. I went on a trip with my family that Christmas, and we didn't usually travel. We ended up going to Florida over Christmas in 1985. And on the drive down, we ended up at this hotel in Georgia with nothing to do, and they had board games. And I had never played Clue before, but one of the board games was Clue. And having seen trailers for Clue coming out, and Clue was actually in theaters at this time, we played Clue at this hotel on the vacation.
That was your first time playing it?
That was my first time ever playing it. I knew it existed. I'd seen it in the board game aisle of the toy stores, but it was this movie that got me into actually playing the board game. And then I remember being in Florida and looking at newspaper listings and seeing the ad for Clue. And if you weren't alive in the 80s, you can't appreciate what it was like to look at a newspaper for movie listings, especially on a Friday when they'd have the big ads and take up like a third or an eighth of a page with their big promotion for the movie.
For several years, I would keep scrapbooks to collect that as art. I was so into it.
Oh my God. It's now so nostalgic whenever I see them online, people who scanned them in. But I remember seeing the ad for Clue, and it had different showtimes, and it would say ending A, ending B, ending C.
Oh, they actually told you?
They did in this newspaper in Florida.
Huh. Because you're talking about the gimmick. Yes. Probably helpful for people to understand. When this screened theatrically, part of the thrill that was supposed to get people into theaters, but didn't, was that it would change each time you watched it because there would be a different ending potentially attached to it. And so you never know who it was going to be the killer, even if you'd already seen the movie.
Right. And the listing, I remember, I have a flash photo in my mind of this newspaper ad saying the different endings at the different times. So you'd be able to schedule it. If you wanted to see all three endings, you could schedule your 3 viewings. But I didn't see this movie until I came back to Springfield after vacation. My godmother took me on a Saturday afternoon. The movie had been out a few weeks at this time. My research since says it was only in theaters for about a month. So it must have been right near the end of its run that I went and saw this in theaters. And I wanted to go back. I wanted to see more endings, but she'd only take me once to see Clue.
It was around Christmas time. I remember going with my brother, and it just wasn't, we were pretty alone in the theater. Not only that, but after I left, I actually saw a school classmate, and she asked me what I saw, and I said Clue, and I was made fun of. I guess it was highly uncool to want to see a movie based on a board game. But I don't know. I remember, again, I come from a board game family. We loved board games. We played them all the time growing up. Clue was a staple. I thought it was a staple for many. But Monopoly, Clue, all the ones you expect to play. We had them. We played them. We loved them. And I was really excited that Clue, it made more sense than any other board game. It feels like it does have a story, but one that you create when you play the game. So how fun it is to see that game adapted. I was in for it and then really enjoyed it. I'll just go ahead and say my first reaction was it was my introduction to Tim Curry. I hadn't seen Rocky Horror Picture Show by the time I was in 5th grade, thank God. And I don't think I would have even have recognized him from Legend. So it was my first time really seeing him. He stood out to me. I was a big fan of him. The whole cast, really. It was a revelation to see Tim Curry in Clue, and I loved the theatrical experience.
Yeah, my experience with Clue is, it was always a board game that was in the closet that we would play, and looking back on it, I'm not sure if we ever played it correctly. I do remember all the cool pieces, the rope, the revolver, the little envelope, your little notebook you had to write on. But what I kind of remember from playing the game is how frustrating it was to be caught in the hallway all the time because you had just one die. And I feel like it took forever to get across the hallway, get in another room.
Oh, forever to get to where you want to make the accusation.
Yeah. So, I don't know if we ever played it right, but that was my memory of it. So I knew the game. I remember seeing the movie come out, but the only thing that really sticks with me is that gimmick. I know I eventually saw it, but I don't know that I went to see it in the theater. But I do remember people talking about, there's multiple endings. You got to go again and again to see the real ending. So it was probably on HBO before I actually sat down and saw it within a couple years of release. But it's always been a movie that I've enjoyed.
Yeah, why should you be different from anybody else? That was where the movie really took off. It was a terrible flop in theaters. But yes, in the years to come, thank you, cable, running continuously, I do think it became beloved, much quoted, and yeah, people are nostalgic for it now.
Yeah, I loved it back then too. I was upset that I couldn't go back for the endings, but I did buy the novelization before this was ever even out on video. There was a bookstore I went to that kept all the novelizations in one section.
I love those. I always would buy novelizations and read them. Do you read it before you see the movie or after, though? That's the question.
I've done both, you know? I remember with Return of the Jedi, I read like 3/4 of the book, but tried not to spoil the ending. But with Clue, I was especially happy to get the novelization because it had all the endings. And so since I only saw one ending, I was able to find out all the rest before video. I remember this movie coming out on video and I was like, am I going to have to rent it 3 times? They ended up splicing all the endings together for video.
Yep.
But the novelization, turns out it was written by a notable author, Michael McDowell. Stephen King praised him as the finest writer of paperback originals in America, and he was the writer of the Beetlejuice movie.
That might be a backhanded compliment, but okay.
Yeah, I agree. The paperback bit is a little bit...
Yeah, not sure if that's a great author or not, but I don't know who he is. I'll say that.
He also wrote 2/3 of Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, and he wrote the movie adaptation of Thinner. Neither of these are necessarily huge feathers in a cap.
Esteem plummeting, but okay.
But the novelization of Clue now goes for $300 on eBay.
Ooh.
Yikes.
And there's a storybook too that has a bunch of photos, and that goes for $200 to $300 on eBay. So these things were forgotten and discarded. I remember I threw away my Clue novelization when I was purging books a long time ago. Like, I was moving back from Florida, and my mom's like, you just got to get rid of some of your books. And I think that was one I chose not to keep. But I'd read it several times. I was able to find it available in PDF on the internet, so I was able to reread, because it has the lost 4th ending. So I was able to reread the 4th ending for this movie.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, you'll have to share that when we get there.
And I was so into this, I don't know if I ever let you play it, Stuart. I actually wrote a full computer game based off Clue the movie.
Vague memories.
It had the entire plot of the movie. It was a fully fleshed out text-based kind of choose your own adventure game. And it had randomized endings. You would have to guess who the killer was, and it would change every time you played the game. So it didn't have graphics because it was, you know, basic programming language back in 1985, but I wrote an entire computer game based off of this movie. I loved it so much.
Wow.
I do have a question. The biggest mystery that I have about all of this. If you were to go to England, I think the movie is called this too, but the game for sure is called Cluedo, like Cluedo or Cluedo. Why would you call it Cluedo instead of Clue?
The original game came out in Britain in 1943, and its name was a pun. It was Cluedo, based on clue, meaning you're looking for clues.
Yeah.
And Ludo, which was Latin for I play, and the name of a popular board game in England based on Pachisi.
Oh, okay.
So by calling it Cluedo, you're saying it's a Clue board game in that kind of mangled way.
Yeah.
But it only means something to the British. When it came over here and Parker Brothers was doing it, they're like, nobody's going to know what the hell a Cluedo is. We're just going to call it Clue.
Yeah, Ludo, I've never heard of that game either. This game does have a distinctive British Agatha Christie. You know, there's something about it that the drawing room mystery feels British. So it makes sense that it would originate there. But yeah, just call it Clue.
Yeah, I ended up buying the game after playing it on that trip, and I remember it very well. I used to play it quite a bit, where you did have the hallways and all those little tokens and the notepad and all the different characters, and It turns out it was a little bit different in the North American version and the British version. For example, in the British version, it was Reverend Green, a local clergyman, and here he was Mr. Green.
Yeah.
A little bit of a demotion.
Yeah, America doesn't want you to demonize their religious figures. Yeah. Reverend Green being the killer probably wouldn't fly.
I would have gone with Vicar Green.
And isn't Mrs. White a maid?
Yeah, at least on the box cover that we had. I think the box has changed.
She was usually depicted as a housekeeper or a cook. We're going to talk about the VHS game. I remember that she was a maid in those VHS games. But I don't know if any of you play those New York Times word games. Every single morning I wake up, and as I have my coffee, I'm playing the New York Times games. And there's Wordle and Connections. And one of them is Strands, which is basically a word jumble where you got to find the words in the mixed letters.
Like, how many words can you find?
Well, it's always themed, and there's usually like 6 or 7 words in a small grid. And one day, that theme was Clue characters. Oh. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be really easy. Plum, Peacock. There's no white. And in fact, when I'm done, there's some letters left, and I'm like, this doesn't make a character. It's spelled orchid. They changed the character list and replaced Mrs. White with Dr. Orchid. I was very upset by this dissing of Mrs. White. So gone is the maid, and in is a doctor, because I guess that's a better look for a woman in the 21st century than being a maid.
Yes, a little progressive there, yeah.
And I will say that that's part of what makes the board game iconic, at least in my mind, is the names were all based on colors, and you had pieces that were those colors. So, like, that was a nice connection right there, because outside of Monopoly, you just picked a random color, like, you know, Candyland, you could be the green gingerbread man or the yellow gingerbread man. Here, Clue, your colors matched up with your names.
Yeah, it's a buy-in. You like suddenly starting to become a character. You invest in this murder mystery a little bit more heavily. It feels exciting to know that you might have even done it. You know, I think, yeah, it was part of the fun. Like, I was imagining projecting myself into, I did have a detective agency very briefly around this time. I wanted to be a private investigator. And so, yeah, Clue was a favorite for that reason.
But this movie took a while to get off the ground. The game had been around since the 40s. The thought of it being a movie started around 1980 with a producer whose name you know, but you may not know you know, Deborah Hill.
Oh, yes.
Who worked with John Carpenter a lot.
Halloween, yes.
Yep. And after Halloween, I think she got her start with Carpenter on Assault on Precinct 13. And she'd work with Carpenter on Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween 3. Well, she was wanting to move away from just being John Carpenter's girlfriend / producer and work on some other projects. And she would have a very good producing career of her own, working on a lot of stuff like Big Top Pee-wee and
Ouch.
Fisher King and...
Okay, better. Yeah, she had some hits, some misses. She was a notable producer, independent of John Carpenter, for sure.
She discovered Chris Columbus, basically, by giving him adventures in babysitting and things like that. So she had a good producing career. She wanted to adapt Clue, and so she just independently went to Parker Brothers and said, I have no money, but I want to adapt your movie. And Parker Brothers was like, all right, well, we'll do it for a percentage of the profits. I'm guessing to this day, Parker Brothers hasn't gotten a penny.
Right. Yeah, are they folded? Didn't they get subsumed by Hasbro?
Yeah, I think this is owned by Hasbro now. But her thought initially was that this would be a stage play. And that they would make a stage play with different endings each night. So the whodunit would have different endings on stage.
Yeah.
And then after she'd gotten it on the stage, she'd be able to sell it to Hollywood as a screenplay. She ended up taking the idea to John Landis, and he loved this idea, and he was going to be the director. And he really bought into this multiple ending idea.
Yeah. We've discovered him with American Werewolf in London, also Animal House. Yeah, he was a big name in comedy around this time. I actually thought he was the director. It was a surprise to look it up and find out this Jonathan Lynn guy, who is, as beloved as Clue is, I think the only other hit on his resume is My Cousin Vinny. Yeah. Everything else was a stinker.
Yeah, he was brought in kind of late to this. What happened was Landis had a real vision for how this would be. And a lot of what we're seeing on screen is Landis's original idea. But he was trying to figure out who did it. He couldn't come up with an ending. He's like, we need a real screenwriter. They brought in a British playwright called Tom Stoppard to write it.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, that's a big name. That's one of the leading dramatists you could bring in. But he's not necessarily funny.
He took the job and worked on it for several weeks and then wrote Landis a letter and said, I can't complete this. It's the first job I've ever accepted that I am just stumped on. Enclosed is a check returning the money you've paid me.
Wow.
I quit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He doesn't need it. Yeah. He did quite well without Clue.
And so then Landis and Hill decided they know the perfect people to write this. And as soon as I say these names, Stuart, you're going to go, uh-huh. But everybody else is laughing at these names because they don't know what you and I know. And I only know it because you put it in the book. There's the tease. The writers Landis wanted was Stephen Sondheim and Anthony Perkins.
Yep, sure.
Because they did the movie The Last of Sheila that Stuart, you really liked and put in our book.
Yes. If you like these kinds of escape room, puzzle room, these kinds of games, it's a movie built on that. It's the story engine for a murder mystery. Not quite as funny, although I guess it has a comedic element to it. But yeah, kind of a thriller, a lighthearted thriller.
I think what's funny is when I watched The Last of Sheila for our book, I saw parallels between it and Clue. And I called them out just saying, it's funny, we have two entries in our book that have these similarities in the whodunit type, but the studio saw how much Sondheim and Perkins were asking for and said, they do not deserve this amount of money. They were asking for a lot. People laugh because they're like, you mean the musical guy and Norman Bates were going to write Clue? But they had written a whodunit together that was beloved.
Yeah, they'd be perfect for it. Plus, they did that in Hollywood. They would actually set up murder parties where they'd invite famous people over. And, before it was a thing, before it was something you could pay to go do yourself. Yeah, they kind of invented the game of murder as a dinner party.
So they ended up talking to this guy, Jonathan Lynn, who, as you mentioned, ended up being the director. He had done a lot of stage work and was becoming pretty well known in the early 80s for a British sitcom called Yes Minister. Means nothing to me, but...
Yeah, if it's not Doctor Who, I don't know what the BBC was playing in the 80s.
Yeah, it ran for 4 years and 22 episodes because, that would have been 1 year of TV in the States back then. But
yeah, I like the British for that reason. They have very short seasons. Get to the point. Don't have those filler episodes. Sure.
And I love the anecdote he said. The only reason he agreed to take the meeting with Landis is because they were going to fly him first class and he'd never flown first class before. So he's like, what the hell? I'll take a first class flight to the States, meet with John Landis, who apparently was very much like Tim Curry, jumping around the room and acting out these ideas for this movie. And then Lynn was like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Interesting. So I'm actually finding it surprising they had a hard time coming up conceptually with what to do, because I actually feel like Clue borrows very, very heavily. I'm wondering if this came up in any of the discussions to Neil Simon's Murder by Death. Do you guys know this movie?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, you really should see it. If you like Clue or you have any interest in Clue, it is the same movie. The premise is, instead of using the board game, the premise is Truman Capote, the actual writer, is playing the Mr. Body character, invites all the most famous investigators from all over the world. So you have a Peter Sellers playing a Charlie Chan type. You have the Nick and Nora Charles from the Thin Man series with Maggie Smith when she was a young woman. You have Columbo, Peter Falk, but he's playing Humphrey Bogart. It's really a lot of fun. I'll actually even go this far. I think it's actually a funnier movie than Clue. The joke writing is sharper. And Neil Simon, being the playwright that he is, that shouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah, there were a lot of comparisons made to Murder by Death in the stuff I read. I don't know if that was a direct inspiration for either Lynn or Landis at that point, but...
They're very close. That's all I'll say, is that if you were struggling, blank page, what do we do? How do we make Clue happen? Go watch that movie and everything falls into place, because it's almost a sequel.
What Lynn said was that the game really was a little difficult to adapt because it had nothing in the way of a story, but it had a lot of limitations. We have to have these rooms. We have to have these weapons. We have to have secret passageways, because those were on the board game. And we have to have these characters. So we have all these things we have to put in, but what does that mean for a story? And Lynn, based on Landis's conception, because Landis had the idea for the murder, blackmail kind of stuff, Lynn was able to take that and run with it, and Lynn decided this should be set in the 50s. Lynn was a friend early in his life with a lot of expatriates who were run out of the States during the Red Scare. Like, he had worked with Charlie Chaplin in the 50s, and so he knew that period. He knew what it meant to be considered a communist in that time, and so he thought this kind of thing wouldn't work modern anyway, so he set it in the 50s. So he got the script done, but by the time they'd gone through all these writers, Landis had decided he was going to make Spies Like Us.
Oof, wrong choice.
Well, what Lynn has hypothesized is Spies Like Us probably paid more, and Landis was getting money together for his legal defense off the Twilight Zone.
I was going to omit that because it seems almost unfair to bring that up every time we talk about John Landis. But yes, he did kill Vic Morrow and a child through negligence on the set of the Twilight Zone movie, yes. One day we'll cover that movie and it'll be out of our system.
Well, that trial hadn't happened yet, and so Landis was able to take a producer credit on this, getting paid, and then go be a director on the higher paying Spies Like Us and get money for his legal defense. That's Jonathan Lynn's theory as to why Landis picked the movie he did.
All right, but then that makes all the sense in the world. Yes, you need a lot of money to fight that court case. That is going to take up a lot of your resources. My one and only memory of Spies Like Us, renting it in the mid-'80s, was it was not nearly as funny as Clue. I did not like it.
I remember liking it. I saw it in theaters too. And Landis reteaming with Aykroyd makes a lot of sense after Blues Brothers. Think you have a hit on your hands with Aykroyd and Chase.
I liked the song. That was it.
But he said to Lynn, who was just hired as the writer, why don't you direct the thing? And Lynn didn't necessarily want to, much like he didn't want to write it, but he said if somebody offers you the chance to direct a movie, you may never be offered that chance again.
Yeah.
So you take the offer to direct the movie. Now, you said his stuff that he'd done mostly known for My Cousin Vinny. I'll agree. What Lynn has said is after Clue, he was put in movie jail. He was actually lined up before this film came out to direct the Steve Martin movie Roxanne. He was fired from that 2 weeks after Clue came out and the box office was seen.
Yes, you have to remember Clue is bad at this time. People don't want anything to be like Clue, which is just so funny now, but okay.
So he ended up going back to England and going back to television, and on his own, he wrote a movie, which I have seen and thought was funny, Nuns on the Run, Eric Idle, Robbie Coltrane.
Yeah, that's just some British shit. I don't, like the Brits sometimes just come up with shit. You're like, okay, if this is what you want to watch, not me.
Well, it got him out of movie jail because Nuns on the Run opened the door to Hollywood again. He got My Cousin Vinny off of that. And then he kind of went downhill. He did the Eddie Murphy, The Distinguished Gentleman, which was one of the first Eddie Murphy films I outright hated.
That may not be his fault, but he still has his name on it, so sorry.
Okay, well, then next he did one of the few Michael J. Fox films I actively disliked, Greedy.
Faint memory, maybe.
Yeah.
And then he did one of the few Steve Martin movies I hate, Sergeant Bilko.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's rough. Yeah. That's what I mean. These are not comedies that people remember with love and affection, but Clue is.
Yeah.
He had lots of bombs, but only one bomb that people like.
Well, The Whole Nine Yards was actually a hit. People like that movie for reasons I don't understand.
Yeah.
But he did do that one too.
Okay. Enjoy. Not on it. Not it. Not on that retrospective.
And then casting for this was a little bit of a challenge. There were a lot of different people bandied about. All of this stuff is online. I'm not going to say all the names, but they had talked about Danny DeVito for Mr. Body. They talked about Bill Cosby for Wadsworth.
Yeah, I think the most interesting one I came across was Carrie Fisher was on board right up until about 2 weeks before filming started, and she had to go to rehab. She was supposed to be Miss Scarlett.
She was.
Oh, really? I would put her for White, but okay.
No, she was Miss Scarlett, and she was the biggest name in this cast at that time. Now, keep in mind, this was made before Back to the Future came out.
Right. Christopher Lloyd is such a get.
Yeah, by the time this came out, Christopher Lloyd would be the big name. But when you were making this, Christopher Lloyd was just that guy from Taxi.
Yes.
And so Carrie Fisher, fresh off of Return of the Jedi, was the name. And it's, again, kind of funny because Lynn met her at a restaurant. She fell over a table and was kind of out of it.
That should get her the job, considering the pratfalls in this movie. But yeah, maybe if she can't repeat it, if it was just, yeah.
Oh, no, she got the job. She was hired to do this.
Okay. All right.
And she called Lynn a couple weeks before filming. Apparently, and this is pretty tragic, she overdosed and was found by a friend of hers. And she'd been doing pills and cocaine and a lot of heavy drugs.
It's the 80s.
And so she went to rehab. I mean, and this is what ended up killing her. I mean, she was a drug addict her whole life. She fought addiction forever.
Yeah.
She was a known drug user during the Star Wars days, too. I mean, she hung around Belushi. You don't not do drugs and hang around Belushi.
No.
So she called Jonathan Lynn and said, listen, I'm in rehab. I'm still going to be Miss Scarlett. I'm going to be allowed out of rehab during the day. I'll come and film and then come back to rehab every night. And Jonathan Lynn's like, I don't think that's a great idea. He went to Deborah Hill. He went to John Landis. And they're like, no, that's fine. We'll do that.
Very sensitive. I can see that they really had her sobriety in mind.
Everybody involved was fine with that until it got to the insurance agency that had to insure the completion of this film.
Of course. Yes, that's always going to be the ones that complain.
They said, we will not insure this movie with Carrie Fisher involved. And so at the very last minute, and I can't imagine anyone else playing this part, but Lesley Ann Warren was the last minute replacement being brought in. She was known for television. She had a Golden Globe.
Oscar nom.
Yeah, she won a Golden Globe for a miniseries, but then had an Academy Award for Supporting Actress nominated for Victor Victoria.
Right. I don't remember her even in that movie, but yes, she got it, so I guess it's a name. You know, squint, and to me, she looks like Susan Sarandon. I could imagine a lot of women in this, but...
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, Lesley Ann Warren is not even a name that comes quick to my lips, but yeah, I'm not going to knock her performance. I do think the cast is a huge selling point. All of these people had made names for themselves on the small screen, right? This was their big movie.
Madeline Kahn, I think, was probably the biggest get of them all here. Yeah. And I knew her because when we got our VCR, my mom became addicted to Mel Brooks movies.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had any way to see them until we got a VCR in like 82. But 82 and 83, I watched Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles repeatedly. So Madeline Kahn, I think, was a big screen comedian who she got her own Oscar nominations because of Blazing Saddles and Paper Moon in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And Mrs. Peacock, I don't think the movie's remembered now, but Goldie Hawn had a breakout with Private Benjamin, and she was the nasty drill sergeant. I think she did the TV show of it, too.
She did. I actually watched that TV show back in syndication. I didn't catch it first run, but I caught Private Benjamin on video also in the early 80s. and then watched that show. When I saw this in theaters, though, I was actually convinced this was Lovey from Gilligan's Island. I did not realize this was the lady from Private Benjamin. I thought it was the lady from Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, I could see that mistake being made. I also want to point out she's in Murder by Death. So again, another thing connecting those two movies.
Michael McKean.
Lenny.
I didn't realize this was Lenny from Laverne and Shirley. He looks so different, without the slicked back hair and the jacket and everything.
Michael McKean's just one of those actors that has solidly just been around throughout all of it, He brought up Laverne and Shirley. He had a stint on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. He would have done Spinal Tap by this point.
Yeah, Spinal Tap, all the Christopher Guest movies he's in, and then later with the Better Call Saul was a great turn there. I don't know if you guys watched that, but he really got some acting chops there.
Yeah, he actually showed he can do drama as well as all the comedic stuff. I think Spinal Tap had been filmed but not released by the time that they were starting this movie. But yeah, he had those bona fides. Martin Mull, at this point, was probably best known for some smaller roles in movies.
Not in our house. My dad loved America Tonight and Fernwood Tonight.
Fernwood Tonight, yep. And Mr. Mom.
Yeah, do people know what that is? I feel like that got lost in time, but it was sort of a parody of a talk show, and he was the talk show host.
Yeah, that was a Nick at Night special.
I never have heard of those shows until this week.
Okay.
But
yeah.
One movie we watch a lot in this house when we just want something on is Mr. Mom, which would have come out a couple of years before this film. He made the jump into films, My Bodyguard, Private School, not great roles, but he was known for a lot of stand-up and music stuff, too.
Yeah, but let's be clear. Comedians, you're not known for great movies. It's not like everything you do is hilarious. You're known for being funny, and you show up and people like you, and yeah, I think all of these people had comedy bona fides. Whatever their bombs were, whatever their hits were, this is dynamo casting. To bring these people together really helps seal the deal about what kind of Clue movie you're making. I mean, I want to point out, they could have just made this straight. This could have been Agatha Christie, and then there were none. I mean, they could have just made it. Those kind of movies were popular around this time. Murder on the Orient Express, all of that. Those were big screen films nominated for Oscars. The decision to go comedy was a risky one, but clearly the right one, and with the right cast. But let's get into it. I think we don't want to delay the point any further. Give us the plots, plural, to Clue.
The year is 1954, and 6 strangers have been summoned to a spooky New England mansion. All are instructed to not use their real names and instead use an alias. Those pseudonyms are Colonel Mustard, who is an active Army colonel, played by Martin Mull. Professor Plum, a psychiatrist, played by Christopher Lloyd. Mr. Green, a State Department employee, played by Michael McKean. Mrs. White, a multiple widow, played by Madeline Kahn. Mrs. Peacock, a senator's wife, played by Eileen Brennan. And Miss Scarlett, a madam, played by Lesley Ann Warren. As each arrive to the house, they are greeted by the butler Wadsworth, played by Tim Curry. Also in the house is the maid Yvette, played by Colleen Camp, and the cook, Mrs. Ho, played by Kelly Nakahara. The final player arrives, Mr. Body, played by Lee Ving.
And that's not a Garbage Pail Kid. That's really, he's in a punk band, so I guess he thought he was cool.
Yeah, Fear. He was really known for that. We'll talk about Ving. Wadsworth reveals all 6 of the guests have been blackmailed for some secret, and Mr. Body is the one who's been blackmailing them. Body hands out weapons, hoping one of the 6 will choose to kill Wadsworth and keep their secrets safe, but someone lashes out the other way and Mr. Body is killed. The cook is then stabbed in the back, and now the 8 remaining people, who are the 6 guests plus Wadsworth and Yvette, try to figure out who among them is the murderer, and the clock is ticking as the police have been called. The group split up to search the house, but 3 others come. A motorist whose vehicle broke down comes for aid, and he's murdered with the wrench. A cop comes after finding the motorist's stranded vehicle, and the cop is killed with the lead pipe. Finally, and most famously, a singing telegram girl shows up, played by the Go-Go's Jane Wiedlin, and she's killed with the revolver. During a power outage, Yvette is strangled to death with the rope. Finally, Wadsworth announces he knows who the killer is. Who is it? Well, as we've said, the movie has 3 endings. In all the endings, it turns out Yvette, Ho, the motorist, the cop, and the telegram girl were Mr. Body's informants. They were not murdered randomly, but in retribution for revealing secrets to the blackmailer. In the first ending, the primary criminal is Miss Scarlett. Yvette was one of Scarlett's employees, and the two teamed up to kill the others. Then Scarlett killed Yvette. Scarlett is arrested by a police officer, played by Howard Hessman, who arrives at the end of the film. The second ending has the criminal being Mrs. Peacock. She killed everyone. She tries to escape, but is arrested by Howard Hessman. The third ending, which we're told on video is the real ending.
The one I saw in movie theaters.
I saw Miss Scarlett.
Yeah.
The real ending has virtually everyone being guilty. Professor Plum killed Mr. Body. Mrs. Peacock killed the cook. Colonel Mustard killed the motorist. Scarlett killed the cop. Mrs. White killed Yvette. And the telegram girl was killed by Wadsworth, not Mr. Green. Wadsworth reveals he is actually the blackmailer, and the Mr. Body who was killed was just his butler. Wadsworth killed the telegram girl, who was one of his informants. He wanted his network of informants gone, and now all the other subjects will become his new informants. But Mr. Green is an undercover FBI agent. He pulls a gun and kills Wadsworth. Howard Hessman barges in to arrest the other murderers as credits roll. And as credits start, I just want to call out one of the things I've always loved about this movie is its score. It starts with these Hitchcockian violins going.
Yeah, it's very Bernard Herrmann.
Yeah, this composer is John Morris, who did work with Mel Brooks a hell of a lot. Young Frankenstein's, Blazing Saddles. Got an Oscar nom for Elephant Man, which people may forget Mel Brooks produced.
Mel Brooks also parodied Hitchcock High Anxiety. So yes, this is someone that is studied in mimicry, and that's what you want. We're mimicking something that should seem familiar, and does seem very familiar. As we get going here, we see the mansion, the storm, all of it. It's just so much fun. I mean, I just want to say, I just like this kind of movie. I get excited. I don't think there's enough drawing room murder mysteries made these days. But again, maybe it's just the private investigator in me that never took that fork in my career. If I had done that instead of movies, yeah, I might be burned out on murder mysteries. But I've just always really loved this kind of environment. And you kind of forget that you're watching Clue, right? In this beginning here, Wadsworth is not a character you can play. You're just seeing archetypes, maids, cooks, butlers, dogs that are shitting.
Yeah, these opening shots, Stuart, you kind of reminisce there about how they don't make movies like this anymore, but these opening shots are giving me flashbacks to a couple years ago when we were watching Knives Out. That feels like a love letter to this, a little bit.
Okay, yes. And I think we probably said as much on the podcast. Of like,
sure.
It was bringing it back, and, Kenneth Branagh's tried to bring it back, but to lesser effect. But yes, my point is simply that I am excited. I'm hooked instantly. It doesn't take much raw meat to throw at me to get me excited for the opening of this movie.
Yeah, totally agree. And like Arnie said, with the score and the imagery early on, it's pulling me right back in.
Yeah, this opening could be played straight with the music we're getting. If it wasn't for the dog poop, You wouldn't know you were in a comedy.
Right. And that stuff's not hilarious, but again, it's just signaling in case you think you walked into the wrong film with all those comedy stars. Yeah, they're going to show up one by one, starting with Colonel Mustard, Martin Mull. We're going to see comedy enter the picture.
Even at that, it was subtle. I mean, you can take a dog shit joke and go way over the top, but this was just subtle. He steps in it, he doesn't draw too much attention to it, and everybody that walks in kind of turns their nose up a little bit, and that's where they leave it.
Checks their own shoe.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that as a running gag in the beginning, because this is a movie that I think does start fairly straight, and the comedy just ramps up more and more as you go until you end on a crescendo of madcap energy.
That's what I like about it, is that, yes, it's slowly rolling, but by the end of it, it's out of control.
And I have to say, when we are being introduced to Wadsworth going through the house, he is seeing that cook, Mrs. Ho, who was a regular from MASH, so a known actress. And Yvette, there's this thing on Twitter especially going around, which is like, who is the first celebrity that awakened sexuality in you? And I always try to go back and wonder who that was. I honestly now think it was Yvette. I think my very first adult feelings for an actress were for Colleen Camp in this movie.
Who would have also been known as Tackleberry's wife in the Police Academy movies.
She was in Apocalypse Now.
Whoa.
She was one of the Playboy bunnies.
Okay, had to be. I was like, I can only think of one role where she would fit.
I know she's been in a ton of stuff and she's got one of those faces, but going back and watching this, like, just her facial expressions were really hitting me in something very specific, and it was bothering me almost the entire viewing. And then it hit me. She is from Election. She is Reese Witherspoon's mother in that movie.
Oh, okay. I'm a big fan of that movie. Okay.
And I've seen that movie several times. So yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, aha, yes, that's where I know this face from. But to Arnie's point, yes, this was quite a nice cleavage.
I remember when I was writing that computer game, I wanted to talk about how sexy she was in my text description, but I also didn't want the game to be too horny because my parents would play it. So I just said she was in an outfit. I just remember how I wordsmithed this. She was in an outfit that was cut low high and cut high low.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, clearly we are supposed to ogle, and I do think that, that's the thing, right? The sexy French maid is just as much a stereotype as anybody else here, but not a playable character. This is an invention for this movie.
But a playable character, as you mentioned, the first one to arrive, Colonel Mustard, Martin Mull, playing it, very much a bumbling character here he's going to be.
Yeah, he's prideful, but he's not as cool as he thinks he is. And almost spills the beans. This is where we get the idea everyone's gotten letters, that these are code names. It's not a cutesy thing that they're all named after colors. They're not to tell their real identity. This is all a gathering in which, they are secretive.
And Mustard isn't really wearing yellow, he's wearing brown. Apparently people were really trying to push Lynn that all these characters should be wearing the colors that they are. So Mustard should be in yellow, White should be wearing white.
Yeah.
Lynn said that would make the characters too two-dimensional. He thought that would undercut them, especially since that wasn't their real name. So what he ended up doing, if you pay really close attention to this movie, the cars they all drive up in are the colors of their characters.
Which is probably the better way to go. You don't want to come off cornball right off the bat and, have people who didn't know what their names were going to be show up perfectly dressed to mimic that.
I'll be honest, I never knew that Peacock was a color. I just know it as a bird. So it makes sense that this woman would have feathers in her, she immediately announces she's an absurd character because all the feathering that's going on in her headpiece.
And then we get some road shots in this movie. The only time we really ever leave the house is to see cars that are broken down pretty much. And Miss Scarlett's car broke down. That's Lesley Ann Warren. And Doc Brown himself.
Yeah, promotion. He's just Professor Plum now.
Yeah, Christopher Lloyd, Professor Plum, pulls up to give her a ride. They happen to both be going to the same house. Here they drop the line that they're going to Hill House, and I, of course, thought they were going to The Haunting of Hill House, that movie we reviewed a long time ago. No, they're actually going to the house named after Deborah Hill, the producer, not going to Hill House, the haunted mansion from the classic movie. I guess it could be both, but they intended it to be Deborah Hill.
My reference around this time would have been Benny Hill. I was very aware that there was a certain kind of British comedy in which you rip the clothes off women, and it was starting to feel that way for me. It felt familiar. It took a while. It's really, again, it's Tim Curry who will introduce the comic energy into the picture. Up until that point, it's largely kind of TNA stuff.
Yeah, everybody takes turns looking down Yvette's outfit. It definitely has a highly sexual feel. Plum is immediately coming on to Scarlett. The fact that they drove up together. When they get there, they're being served champagne. He clinks his glass with hers. He's definitely
grabbing ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's how we expect men to behave in maybe the 50s and definitely in the 80s. John Landis, Animal House.
And then the one we didn't mention, Mrs. White shows up and dressed all in black and with a veil on like she just came from husband number 6's funeral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always I like Madeline Kahn in general. Her instincts are usually right for comedy. And yes, that she's playing it as this Black Widow. The only thing pure about her is her name, that just exuding evil. And I guess she gives Yvette a look as well. We'll find out that she knows this woman was with at least one of her husbands. But Peacock can't stand a dinner party without, talking. And I think she's the one that helpfully breaks the ice and gets it known that everyone here is connected to Washington, D.C. for the most part. That a town of governmental secrets, they're all in possession of those as well. Mr. Green knows her.
Yeah, Mr. Green works for the State Department. Everybody except for Plum lives in D.C. Plum works for the United Nations and the World Health Organization. I didn't get this joke, but I found it online that it's who, United Nations World Health Organization.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to understand. They imply that he's involved. They call it family planning, but I think there's sort of implication that he's doing, I don't know, something untoward. What's his deal?
Well, we find out when they talk about the blackmail that he got caught sleeping with a patient.
No, I know that part, but I thought there was something about his job, too, that, he was genetically tampering, something. Again, you tell me family planning on the World Health Organization. What does that mean? That sounds like eugenics. That sounds vaguely Nazi-ish.
What they specifically say, and I wrote this down because it was really strange to me, was he was helping paranoid and homicidal lunatics who were suffering from delusions of grandeur. And it was one of those he was doing when he slept with a patient. And so then he got demoted and had to go in shame to the UN.
Okay. Yeah, they've all got secrets, and they all know they shouldn't be talking about them once they're sitting around the dinner table. And again, this is where I start to feel the comedy energy coming from each of them. You're getting the feel of each. Even if you didn't know the game, and didn't know the characters, and didn't even keep track of the colors, I think that each actor is bringing something unique that stands out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is where we get to meet everybody and start to see their personalities come out. And
Mr. Body definitely sticks out. When he finally arrives, the last guest, yeah, there's just something about him. He's not a known comedic energy. They didn't go with Chevy Chase or Dan Aykroyd or something. That would signal one thing. This guy does feel dangerous. There's something about him when he comes in that makes you feel like the jokes are over. This guy means business.
Not what Lynn wanted to do. Lynn was looking at having a guest star, a bigger star than the rest, because the rest was an ensemble. We mentioned they've all done stuff, but just none of them were highly paid. It was in the contract. They all got the same amount of money. They were only getting $100,000 for this movie. So nobody was walking away with huge bank.
Maybe a cut of the profits. Haha.
But Lynn thought we'd bring in somebody pretty big for this role, and it was the studio's mandate. We want a musician. We want to promote our music branch as well as our movie branch. And so we want you to hire a musician for this role. And a lot of names were thrown around.
Okay.
One of them was Weird Al.
Okay, that's weird. But I guess comedy. That would definitely be that would be the opposite direction that I think, like having everyone wear bright colors, is too much.
yeah.
And then they were talking about Gene Simmons, who was trying to break into acting.
Sure.
Never Too Young to Die, Trick or Treat.
They may not recognize him by the face, right? He was still wearing the makeup by this point. So, as leader of KISS.
I think they took it off in 84, so...
Okay, yeah. It would have been around this time, but I don't know that I would recognize Gene Simmons in 1985.
They ended up getting Lee Ving, who got a big push in the 70s as part of the band Fear.
Maybe. Yeah, don't know them, don't know Lee, don't know nothing about this.
Strangely, coincidentally, I just finished reading a John Belushi biography book, and Lee Ving featured in that because Belushi was really into punk music, just massive into punk. And they were making a movie called The Neighbors. It was one of Belushi's last films.
Terrible, as I recall.
And Belushi wanted Fear to do the song for that movie. And the studio said no, and Belushi felt really bad about it. And so to try to make it up to Ving and Fear, he went to Saturday Night Live and said, I want you to have Fear as a band on your show, and I will guest star on an episode of SNL if you let Fear on. Well, Fear played, and it turned into a riot that tore up the stage, and Fear was banned from SNL, and Ving was seen as dangerous.
This is going with what I'm saying. He projects that. He does not seem like a rocker that's ready to make you laugh.
But he was trying to get into acting. He was in that Emilio Estevez film, Nightmares.
Yeah, vague. Okay.
I actually really liked that one when I saw it. I haven't seen it in a couple decades. And then he was in Flashdance, and he finally got this role here. But what's also amusing to me is I never knew this. This isn't his voice. Every single line of his is dubbed over.
Okay. Is he British or something? Or what was the problem?
I'm wondering if he just wasn't a good enough actor and he didn't have a whole lot of lines. There's not a lot of information on it. I could find some online guesses as to who the actual voice actor might be, but they had to do some ADR work for this film anyway, and as part of their ADR work, they brought in this guy with this deep voice to redo all of Ving's lines. So you're seeing Ving, but ironically, for a singer, you're not hearing Ving.
Yeah, there is this disconnect. There's something about him that is not like the others, and when Wadsworth drags them all into the next room, and I like that we're seeing the house, the board game, as it were. Yeah, we're now in the study. This is where it gets real. This is where we find out that he's the blackmailer, and we find out what they're being blackmailed for.
Yes. Plum, I mentioned, slept with a patient. Peacock, the senator's wife, was taking bribes in exchange for her husband voting the way people want to. I think that's legal now.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a crime. I think that's just called lobbying.
Right.
No problem. Mm-hmm.
Miss Scarlett is a Washington, D.C. madam who runs a brothel.
Probably also legal right now.
Colonel Mustard visited the brothel.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. White killed her husband, who visited the brothel.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Green is a homosexual, and that's enough to get him fired if that came out.
Yeah.
Which is true, which is historically accurate at this point. It would not be until the 70s where we would have a reevaluation.
Yeah, I mean, almost period accurate for the 80s or the 50s, right? I mean...
Right. True that.
They're not afraid to go with the gay panic joke, but I actually find it a little funny. Green stands up and is like, I'm not going to let Wadsworth expose me. I'll tell everyone my secret myself. And then he sits back down on the sofa, and Plum was sitting next to him, immediately gets up and moves away. It's just Plum, who's been just, like you say, grab-assing Scarlett the whole night, is now afraid Green is going to do that to him. So afraid of his own behavior, he moves away. There's a lot of subtle jokes in this movie. I think it definitely rewards rewatching, and this is one of those subtle jokes that I just laugh at so much.
And recycled jokes, just gonna say it, probably a few more times. Murder by Death also has a major character revealed to be homosexual, but I won't spoil it.
Another kind of subtle joke, Wadsworth admits that he was being blackmailed because his wife, who killed herself, had friends who were socialists.
Mm-hmm.
And just the gasp everybody does with the socialists.
Mm-hmm.
Very 50s. Earlier, you could see some of the McCarthy hearings were on the Cook's television, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it is, 1954. So, yeah, that was the year where, you were being persecuted. People were being run out.
Yes, sir, have you no dignity?
That was actually the clip that was being shown, or at least from that day.
Yes. And so they're all outed, and also noteworthy, Yvette's in the next room, the billiard room, taping all of this, and we get the idea that Wadsworth is actually trying to fight back, that he's the good guy, that he's actually going to have these folks, he organized this party, and he's going to have these folks, I don't know what did he really think was going to happen here? The cops would come and they just arrest a man for blackmailing and not pay attention to the secrets that he had?
That's kind of what's implied here. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb, and that limb could break under me, but this movie doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense if you don't treat it as a comedy. If you want to know Wadsworth's motivation, if you go back, because after watching this film, because it's now playing, like when they said in the Peacock did it ending that Peacock wasn't in the kitchen with them all when they found the body.
She was.
I rewound. Peacock was in the kitchen when they found the body.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did the same thing. Yes. They're going to claim that people were doing other things and what have you. And the evidence is, as far as I can tell, this cast never splits up except when they do the matchstick thing. They are always together in every room.
You're right. There's going to be things here where if you're looking at this as a true murder mystery and only at that level, then you might not be having a great time because it does kind of fall apart.
They cheat.
But if you're into the comedy and the witty banter, then I think this is your movie.
And I want to say that was actually one of my grudges against this movie when I went to see it in theaters, because I was 11 years old. I was enjoying watching mystery films. I mean, I grew up, I also wanted to be a detective. I read a lot of Encyclopedia Brown and the Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Detectives novels for anyone my age who might remember that book series. I always would feel so superior if I could figure out the mystery before it was revealed. And coming into Clue the very first time, knowing there were multiple endings, I immediately felt like it was a rigged game, because you can't figure out who the killer is, because the evidence isn't going to point towards any one thing specifically, because you might be seeing a different ending. So in that way, plus the fact that, yeah, everybody's pretty much together. Lynn talked about how in editing, they made sure you didn't see this character for like 60 seconds so that they might be running down the hall and try to play it all the way so that all these endings could be true.
No.
But no, I don't think Wadsworth's plan of getting them together, it only makes sense if Wadsworth is body, which is the "and this is how it really happened" ending.
Yeah, I think it relies a little too heavily on the secret passageway being almost a magic portal type of trope for some of this logic.
Yeah, but here's, I guess, what I will argue. Yes, what you said, Arnie, is also the reasons why Siskel and Ebert gave this movie a thumbs down. They were like, well, this isn't a true murder mystery. Duh. You know, I mean, come on. Like, what's fun, what they get right about this is that, I mean, and I feel that excitement. When the boxes come out and suddenly we have the murder weapons, it really doesn't matter who did it or with what. It's the fact that all of these elements are in play. The fact that it's happening in front of you with this comedic cast is the electric. It doesn't matter who did it. It's about watching the performers fumble through. And that's everything. You're not going to like Clue because it told you a story about a murderer. You're going to like Clue because it deconstructed murder mysteries.
Right. And in that same vein, the murders aren't treated as serious either. You know, I mean, they make jokes about, oh, the bodies are piling up. Let's put them in the study with the others.
Yeah, the inglorious way that they'll pick them up and just drop them as they pile in here. and again, Peacock's reaction. I think it's Peacock who first signals that, like, we should be laughing, you know, that she's fainting and screaming and all of that. When the lights go out, and Mr. Body thinks they're going to be killing Wadsworth, and he's the one that ends up on the ground. No one is going to be stunned. Everyone is going to be giggling. Hopefully.
Yeah, and I think this is a pun. I'm not sure. But the fact that when Body was finally killed, he was killed by the candlestick. He was hit in the head, and he's found in the bathroom, which don't British people call that the head?
Or the loo.
Yeah, but I know what you're trying to do.
I think that's intentional. I don't think that that's lost on Lynn by doing that.
The bathroom is not a playable area of the board. Neither is the head.
Yeah, it's the ensemble that keeps this movie going. And the fact that it is an ensemble piece, not a star vehicle. In my mind, Tim Curry is the star and everybody else is secondary, but they view it as like 7 equal players. But everybody, the way they bounce off each other and play off each other, the interplay between these actors, the fact that they're all established comedians allows them to have the perfect timing, the perfect reactions to everything. You know, one of the big things I keep reading is acting is reacting. And the fact of how everyone reacts to other people's lines is what really drops a lot of the humor. And, you know, just the fact that this was written by a Brit isn't shocking to me because there's so much dry humor in this too. There's just, you know, or how many husbands have you had? Mine or other people's?
I mean, it's to that point, Arnie, that I think this movie is a great movie for us to have grown up with, because we could appreciate the frantic energy of Tim Curry when we were younger, and as we grow older, we can start to latch on to some of that drier, more subtle humor.
And yet they're following like movie screenplay logic. Like, it's been half an hour, and again, with the introduction of those Clue totems, which again, like suddenly I was like, oh, that's right, we're watching Clue. Like once those boxes open, you go, oh, the candlestick. I'm in this movie. I had forgotten that they were adapting a board game, which is the way you want to experience this. To forget and then to have at the right moment the reminder that they're bringing this game to life. And again, now we're in Act 2 and everyone's got to figure out, is there more people in the house? Is there more bodies to be had? The cook's going to die. More people are going to arrive and die. This is where, again, it's not about solving who did it. It's about amping up this comedy repartee that this cast has.
But unlike the board game, which you're trying to find one murderer who killed Mr. Body, but very quickly here, we have two dead bodies because they turn out the lights, the gun goes off, there's some kerfluffle, and then when the lights come back on, Mr. Body is down on the ground, and they all go rushing into the kitchen, and the cook is in the freezer with a knife in her back. So there's multiple murders going on already, and a question of, all right, why would you want to kill Mr. Body and the cook?
And you wouldn't. Again, the absurdity of all of this. I mean, they'll have their reasons, and they're good enough to accept this movie on its premise. But again, if you're not here for comedy, if they had tried to make this a drama, I don't think we would be talking about it today. The fact that Body came back, like died, but wasn't really dead, and either Plum is in on it or bad at his job, because he's supposed to pronounce the guy dead, and no, that he turns up again and in the arms of screaming Peacock. Again, Peacock is letting you know, we're doing pratfalls, we're dropping dead bodies, we're wearing silly hats, we're having a good time.
And Michael McKean is slapping her in the face. He had to stop her screaming. I mean, and they just run from room to room here. The energy just builds and builds.
Yeah, Act 2 is where the movie comes to life. Act 1 was about setting up the board. You know, that's always when you're playing a board game. It takes a while to like get everything. Let me count out the money. Let's set the pieces. Whatever, you got this. There's a little bit of tedium before we get going. But once you're playing, it's exciting. It's like now we're really playing the game. There's finally a dead body, 2 of them at that, and here we go. And so they're going to split up, and I think this is wise. Again, almost every scene we have the ensemble running from room to room. But here in Act 2, we're having people paired with the person that they least wanted to be with. And yeah, having some solo adventures as we spread throughout the house, getting a little more sense of the place. Yeah, this is where we find out about secret passages, which again are so helpful when you're playing that game. And as Justin's already said, it takes forever. Like you could roll 1, 2, like it could literally be 5 or 6 turns before you get to the room where you can finally do what you've been trying to do. In this movie, they're running to and fro. In that one, you're crawling on your hands and knees. So yes, you're always grateful when you're in a room that has a secret passage that can take you to the other side. I love that they've incorporated in that. And again, it helps it feel Clue specific, that we're able to, go from the greenhouse into the kitchen and so on.
Agreed. Again, I had just learned the game when I went to see this, but that meant that the lore of the game and the secret passages meant more to me and felt so integral, so that when they start finding them here, that goes well for me. I do feel the times when they split up into these groups, the movie dips, because this film works best when you have all these people together, it's like a dynamo. They just bounce off each other and feed each other. And I feel like off screen, like each of them is upping their game because of the people they're working with. Everybody's pushing each other to be at their funniest. When they pair off, it just feels like a little bit less. There's some funny jokes that go on, but it just feels a little bit more tedious during those times.
But I do think there is still a ensemble energy because, you know, they got these murder weapons and they've locked them all up in a cabinet that Wadsworth is trying to, again, I get the sense that he's really the protector and the one that's doing all of this for noble reasons. All of these people probably are slimy bastards that have bad secrets, but he's the good guy trying to free them of a blackmailer. And so he's going to lock up the weapons, throw away the key, and we get the next victim. Standing at the door is a man who, well, he claims he broke down, and we'll find out that that's true. But it is a weird coincidence that he seems to know one of them as his old boss and goes into the lounge to make that phone call.
Yeah, this motorist. What is really, again, tenuous with this is that in all the endings, we're told everybody who comes to that house was invited by Wadsworth because they're all mixed up in Mr. Body's schemes. And those people who come later are informants. And yet, the motorist seems like his car really broke down. And in fact, they filmed scenes of his car broken down and him, like, swerving to miss a cat. And so his car broke down. He goes to the house and he acts like he doesn't know he's supposed to be there when he's supposedly invited. A perfect movie would balance all this out. So I can't say Clue is a perfect movie. I'm calling these flaws out. They don't bother me because this is a comedy and the energy stays high, but it just doesn't hold logical water.
No, but I think it's right. Again, hear what I'm saying. It's not like the picture that they're painting is complete, but you have all of these elements because these are the elements that create a great murder mystery, right? The stranger on the road that just shows up and what is his involvement is a red herring you want to throw into a mystery. And so it makes it more exciting to participate when things like that happen. And then, of course, when the secret passage swings open, the fireplace flips, and somebody does him with the wrench. Again, you need a body count. And I think it just keeps it interesting and again, reminds us why we love this genre. Not that it makes sense, not that it's the best murder mystery you're ever going to see, or even a competent one, but that it understands the elements. It has deconstructed what's good about them.
You mentioned red herring. This is the movie that introduced me to the term red herring, because it's used at the end. And I remember asking my godmother after the movie, what's a red herring? And she told me it was a kind of fish. And so I was doubly confused. And so, there was no Wikipedia where I could just look up what this meant. So now I'm like, communism is a fish? I was just so confused for so long.
But that's what I miss about the world, is that nobody could run to their phones and prove you right or wrong. You could create myths. You could believe in magic. I don't know. It was a wonderful time, the 80s.
And this motorist getting hit over the head with the wrench, this was the one scene that needed a cut. As part of the deal to get the license from Parker Brothers, the film had to be family friendly, the film couldn't have any bad language, not too much sex, and it had to be PG. The MPAA didn't like the bloody shot of the motorist's head, so they ended up having to snip a few frames out. Otherwise, you would have seen some blood on the motorist's head, and it would have been the goriest shot of the film, which isn't very gory.
Yeah, there is no blood. I mean, I guess a little bit on Leaving's head as Mr. Body. But again, he's face down for much of it, and even Colonel Mustard's going to be shot here. That he ends up in the locked room with the body screaming, and Yvette trying to shoot off the lock. I guess he winged him. He says he winged him, but we never see any evidence of it.
Yeah, very little blood, but we're okay with necrophilia later on here coming up.
That is a definitely ballsy scene. Yeah, I remember that from the trailer. One of the things that made me want to see this movie was Mustard and Scarlett on the inside and the people on the outside, and the outside are like, let us in, let us in, let us out, let us out. I just...
Yeah, classic screwball comedy, 30s. It's not quite 50s entertainment. It really predates it, but it feels period in a way that's very satisfying. And chandelier's falling, Pratt falls. Yeah, people are on their game. Tim Curry running into that door. His reaction, priceless, when he thinks he can knock it open and falling back. Yeah, this is where I become the real fan.
I agree. I didn't know Tim Curry at all. I'd seen Annie, but I didn't know Tim Curry from Annie. But that's probably where I first saw Tim Curry, was Annie in theaters. But this is the movie that made me go, I like that guy. And for the rest of my life, including the first time I see Rocky Horror, I'm like, it's the guy from Clue.
Still is. Not Rocky Horror.
Yeah, when they announced the It miniseries, I'm like, wait, the guy from Clue is going to be Pennywise? That doesn't make sense.
But yes, we need more victims. Here they come a-calling. The ticking clock is that Tim Curry's Wadsworth has already called the cops. In most of the endings, that is true. But while they're waiting for cops, another cop just happens to notice the broke down vehicle down the road and comes calling to see if that motorist asked to use the phone and is locked in the library.
And Michael McKean's line delivery here when he's giving the cop the tour after the phone call with J. Edgar Hoover. The lines are funny, but the way they're delivered, the little inflections, Mr. Green's voice almost cracking, this thing is almost like a musical to me because the voices go up and down, the score is omnipresent, and it really feels timed to the action on the screen. And so I think this is a very quotable movie because of how people say what they say, not just what they say. When people quote this movie, they're doing an impersonation of the actor who delivered a very unique line reading. They're not just quoting this movie.
And again, I'm going to say, if you want a better, tighter, funnier comedy, Murder by Death is that one. But I probably enjoyed this movie more, in part because I saw it first and at an impressionable age. But I also agree that there's something about this cast that can make a so-so line sing. And yes, it is, I guess, some kind of escape. You used the word necrophilia. Maybe not quite. I hope nobody's inserting anything, but they're definitely to cover up the corpses lying around, making out with them, dousing them in alcohol and saying they're passed out, trying to make it seem like just a debaucherous party and not a murder party.
With that upbeat doo-wop music going, too. And the fact that Plum is making out with the cook, but Peacock is standing behind the cook to give the moving arms impression and things.
Yeah, but that means our cop is getting a little close for comfort, so he's got to go.
Well, also, and again, A, the cop was supposed to be there. B, you'd think the cop would know Miss Scarlett, who's been paying him off, according to most of the endings. So he would have some kind of reaction. But C, yeah, he's going to be locked in the room and be hit over the head with the lead pipe.
Yeah, they use all the rooms. They use all of the weapons. And that's Clue, right? Is the more you play, the murders happen everywhere. And everything is the murder weapon. And everyone does it. So I think that third ending and all that they're doing is the right one. That is the Clue experience. And two more murders happen at this time. There's a power outage. Someone throws a big lever. Everything's thrown in darkness. Yvette, who, again, didn't belong, wasn't a playable character, seemed strange to be there, was a conspirator, was trying to talk to the murderer in the billiard room, was up to no good, and gets strangled with the rope.
And did either of you catch this? When she's talking to the murderer right before she's strangled, and we don't see who the murderer is, we just see gloved hands, she doesn't have a French accent. That whole French accent was some bullshit she was pulling off to play the role of the maid. Mm-hmm. But here, when talking to whoever her co-conspirator is, she drops the act and is speaking normal.
Yeah, part of the deception, part of the mirage that's going on here.
I always saw that game piece, the rope, as like a noose, right? Something that you would hang somebody by. Like, I don't know that you'd take a big, thick rope like that that's, knotted up into a loop and use it to strangle somebody, but...
Yeah, I don't think it would work very well, but hey.
And then the most random thing. And Stuart, I remember you just on the playground talking about how much you loved the death of Jane Weedlin.
Yeah, I don't think I laughed harder. This is the big laugh moment in the movie, is out of the blue. Whenever you can do this, out of the blue, have an absurd character come in and do a tap dance and then shoot them dead. What's better than that? Nothing. Nothing's better than that in the world. I am your singing telegram. Bang. That's it. Yeah.
But here's the thing with that. Again, going with music, they put that bam in time to the song.
Sure.
Dot, 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 da. You know, it's just, it is music.
Although, I like your analogy, but I want to say sometimes if things feel too on the nose, if the song feels too familiar, if you can see these things coming, to me, that's bad comedy. That's strained comedy. That's one that's hitting marks, and it doesn't have the spontaneity. There's something about this movie that feels alive. And I appreciate what you're saying about music, but I do feel like, again, who expected a singing telegram to pop up at the front door at this moment? Nobody.
Yeah, and she wasn't singing Pop Goes the Weasel, where we all know, you know, where the band would come. This was an original piece of music that I didn't know when the band was coming, but it did come on the beat.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying with the music, though, I think that also helps with the remembering of the lines, and it helps with the rewatchability, because it is so musical. I think this was Star Wars too. The fact that the John Williams music plays for the majority of the movie Star Wars makes me think that, you know, you can listen to that music and see the movie, and you can watch the movie, and George Lucas intended this, and not even know the dialogue, and the music and the acting is giving you the whole story and mood. Here, yeah, I'm not saying it's predictable because it's a song. I'm saying that it's in a rhythm that is appealing and replayable, because people sometimes, nobody who listens to this show, but people on the street, if I say I watched a movie 4 times, they might look at me strange. They'd be like, why would you ever watch a movie 4 times? Why do you not just watch it once and be done? But nobody thinks, why do you listen to a song more than once? Why do you just listen to a song once and be done? And so I think that adds to the longevity of Clue, is that it is just so timed. Comedy is timing, and everything in here through the editing and the delivery is timed perfectly.
Yeah, agreed on that. And we're ready to wrap up. This is where we're at the climax. This is where Tim Curry really is going to, you talk about like full manic mode. He's going to recreate all the parts throughout the whole evening, and we're going to realize how funny the movie was. We weren't laughing when we saw it the first time, but watching Tim Curry's version of it is a one-man show.
I tried to come up with the term other than tour de force for Curry's performance here, and I couldn't. I cannot come up with a better term than tour de force, as it does become a one-man show, and Curry paid such attention. There's no videotape back here. You can't go to the digital files and rewatch how did Michael McKean deliver the line, I had to stop her screaming.
Well, they had dailies.
They have dailies, but those aren't as easily accessible as a digital file you can just play back. And they don't have the clean audio necessarily. So the fact that he is able to impersonate his co-stars and mock the delivery of their lines, or at least heighten the delivery of their lines, but it's quite clearly a spot-on impression of all 6 of those co-stars. You know, Tim Curry was not their first choice. They talked, as I mentioned, about
Bill Cosby. Wow.
Bill Cosby or Bill Murray, you know, both of them were outside of the budget. They wanted more than $100,000 to do it. They also talked about Rowan Atkinson taking this part, but nobody in the States knew him because Mr. Bean would come 5 years later. But Tim Curry, in this scene, this movie would not be remembered if it wasn't him doing this.
Yeah.
Agreed. I mean, again, we weren't totally laughing when we saw it in the original form, but now that he's doing it, everything he's doing is funny. In part because he's heightening it, but just in part because he's helping teach us that this has been a comedy all along.
Yeah, I mean, this whole cast is great, but I think if you pluck out Tim Curry, I don't think Clue has the longevity that it has nowadays. I mean, you could replace almost anybody else in this cast, even though I enjoyed every one of their performances, but Tim Curry is the one that has to stay. And if he's not in this movie, it's not what it is. And I start thinking about, there's talk of a reboot of this, and my only hesitation to a reboot would be, I don't know that you could find somebody to play the Tim Curry role without just mimicking him in a modern way.
Yeah, that's maybe why we haven't gotten a sequel or a remake in 40 years. We'll talk about what came after this movie after we finish up here. But yeah, let's break down the 3 endings. Miss Scarlett, I don't know, she's such a femme fatale that almost seems too obvious. It feels like an easy one to peg on her. She was the madam. She had Yvette working for her as a call girl. And yeah, madams are evil, right? Like, it's just easy to fill in the blanks.
And the most unsatisfying solution, I would think. Of the 3, this one is the one that's just kind of like, okay, fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They get the line, frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn, but otherwise, don't get much out of this.
I agree. I sort of like it because of how Lesley Ann Warren plays it. Once she's revealed to be the killer, I really like her leaning fully into the femme fatale and being ready to shoot Wadsworth. And what I like that this one has, and none of the other endings have this, is the math about how many bullets are fired. Wadsworth is like, Scarlett, there's no more bullets in that gun. And she's like, 1 + 1 + 2 + 1. No, 1 + 2 + 2 + 1. It's just, that little back and forth is the highlight of this ending for me.
Yeah.
And the chandelier. How many chandeliers do you have in a hallway? But yes, another chandelier coming down and scaring Martin Mull.
Second ending is it's Mrs. Peacock. I think this is the weakest ending myself, because in Miss Scarlett's ending, Yvette was a co-murderer. Yvette killed Mr. Body while Scarlett was in the kitchen. Yvette killed the cook while Scarlett was with Mr. Body. And then Scarlett did the other murders. And it sort of makes sense why they would want to take out the people. I don't necessarily know why Scarlett would want to take out the singing telegram girl, but it gets weaker when we have the Mrs. Peacock ending, where she single-handedly killed everyone.
Yeah, and physically couldn't have done it.
Yeah, she's honestly the least likable character here. We talk about how this is a great ensemble, and Eileen Brennan is a experienced comedian, but her character here is just so prickly the whole movie that the funny thing is her aghast reactions to people, but she's never a fun character. And so when you put the complete spotlight on her at the end, it's not all that satisfying.
She's absurd. She's this absurd pheasant woman who, again, by having her be smart and getting away with it all, it means she wasn't the daffy woman that screamed when the body fell on her. I like her better as the twit than as the conniver, I guess I would say. But, it ends on a funny joke, like Peacock was a man, slap. Green finally getting slapped for all the slaps he gave her.
And I did like when Peacock is leaving and Wadsworth starts the "For She's a Jolly Good Fellow" song. I absolutely love that Madeline Kahn does harmony on it.
Yeah.
It's just, she instantly falls into that. It just really, that and the Mrs. Peacock was a man are the two good things here. I also like, this is where Howard Hessman, I feel, gets the best spotlight, is his encounter with Mrs. Peacock outside the building.
Do people know him? He was on, what, WKRP?
WKRP, yeah.
And would later go on head of the class. But yeah, I feel like time has forgotten Howard Hessman.
Yeah, I think that he was huge for WKRP, and WKRP was huge for its time.
He was the cool DJ. He
Yeah.
was the one that, was really 70s slick.
Johnny Fever.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also did a couple of years. I didn't catch WKRP early on, but what I did watch as a young child was One Day at a Time, and he became the main character's second husband. They got married, and she was married for the last couple seasons with Valerie Bertinelli there and things.
Huh. Don't have any recollection.
Yeah, I don't know if I made it that far. Was Schneider still around?
Yeah, Schneider was always around. But yeah, I think that he's a really small role, but I like that he's a recognizable face in a small role. It's kind of like if you had made Mr. Body a more notable thing. You pay more attention to this evangelist at the door because it's Howard Hessman. But if you don't know who Howard Hessman is, you don't lose anything. But if you know who he is, it makes the evangelist more stand out. Like, why is Howard Hessman showing up saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand?
Yeah, it signals that something is afoot outside. And it's not a surprise that the FBI keeps rating that they're on this. We can know that, yes, he was waiting in the wings to grab the criminal. But what's he going to do when they all did it? This is the ending that I saw. And this is, of course, the famous, not to blow it, but sorry, it's old enough. If you haven't seen it, surprise. This is the Murder on the Orient Express ending, right? This is the classic, they all did it, that Agatha Christie is so beloved for. You want to satirize that.
I've never seen it. I'm spoiled now. I was going to watch the Kenneth Branagh version this weekend.
Well, now you know, but you should have already known. That's a thing. I knew it going into this movie because I had seen the Hercule Poirot 70s one.
Yeah, everybody killed someone here except Mr. Green. This has, I think, what is the most loved part of this film, and the only ad-lib that was really allowed. Like, everybody had to stick to the script for this, but Madeline Kahn ad-libbed the, I did it, I killed Yvette, flames on the side of my face. Yes. That whole bit is only in this ending. I mean, this is the thing. If you only saw one ending in the theater,
this is the one.
You're missing so many other jokes. You're not getting, frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn, or you're not getting Mrs. Peacock was a man, or you're not getting Madeline Kahn's flame speech.
Yeah. Which is why you keep going back again and again and paying ticket price to make this the box office hit, and it wasn't. Right? Or you just wait for video and watch them all in short succession, which I think works fine. It works fine. As much as you're right, it would be satisfying to only get one ending, and that was your clue. I like the fact that we can see all the different takes.
It feels like one of those gimmicks that William Castle would have done in the 50s. You know, I don't feel like outside of just 3D movies, we weren't having this kind of gimmick in the 80s. And God, the fact that projectionists sucked so badly in my town in Illinois, how could projectionists even know which reel to put on at the end and keep it straight?
It was a $20 an hour job. Like, it was a professional's job up until the mid 90s when they started to, think about going digital and, just having the soda boy ushers do that job. But yes, at one point it would have been, somebody, wasn't going to lose frames, put it together professionally, focused it properly. It was an experience.
But here, Mr. Green is the one who didn't do it. It's a little confusing because Wadsworth is like, I'm really Mr. Body, and Mr. Body was my butler.
Yeah. Huh? Don't spend any time on the logic of that. Just laugh that Tim Curry finally gets to be evil and gives us a death scene.
And I actually really love my favorite moment of Christopher Lloyd in this movie is actually him just like, shucks, when he found out he killed a butler instead of killing Mr. Body, because he was, in this case, the one who killed Mr. Body.
Yeah, that was the surprise. Having come from Back to the Future earlier, to see him not be Doc Brown, such a smaller, by comparison, it just doesn't go for the big thing. Christopher Lloyd, to me, was the least impressive, I suppose. If I had to pick one in the cast that made the least impression, it was probably him.
But Mr. Green is working for the FBI, pulls a gun, shoots Wadsworth, and then, admittedly, this is the best ending to put third, because when Green is talking to Hessman, he's like, who shot Mr. Body? I did, with the revolver, in the hallway, and I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife. This whole movie, we thought he was gay. And the big exclamation point on the end is, I'm going to go home and screw my wife.
Yeah. People aren't who they claim to be. Again, Yvette dropping the French accent, keeping you on your toes. There's plenty of reasons to go back and watch it again, even though you could watch it a million times. I have, and it'll never make sense.
Now, one of the things Lynn said about this and fought with the studio on was he always thought this should be released with 3 endings. It should just have all the endings at once. And the studio and Deborah Hill and Landis were all like, the whole point is we have the multiple endings. We're going to try to do that as the gimmick.
Yeah.
So when this was coming out on video, Lynn was like, hey, can we put these endings in an order and put them all at once? And by that point, nobody gave a shit because this movie had flopped. And they're like, Lynn, you do whatever you want to do. So the ending that I grew up with on VHS, I remember I rented this first week it came out. I ran to Kay's Merchandise, where I rented movies, to rent this because I needed to see the other endings that I'd only read in the novelization. And Lynn was the one, these weren't like the order they were in the script. He decided this is the order they should play in. This is the one that should be the quote-unquote real ending. But they did shoot a 4th ending. And in researching this movie, a couple of times the director said it was never shot, and then a couple of times the director said he didn't even remember it, and then the director said, no, we filmed the whole thing, but I just didn't think it was funny enough, so we didn't use it. In the 4th ending, everybody was killed by Wadsworth.
Okay.
It was the typical the butler did it ending.
Yeah. Okay.
And what he said was he had always strived for perfection. He wanted to be the perfect husband, but his wife killed herself after being discovered with socialists. And he wanted to be the perfect butler, but he was working for this blackmailer. And so he decided to commit the perfect crime. And the only way you can do the perfect crime is by having witnesses. And so he brought all these people together so they could watch him kill Mr. Body and the informants that had kept him under their shoe. And then they go, well, we're just going to tell the cops. And he goes, no, you're not. That champagne you drank at the beginning of the night was poisoned, and you're all going to die of poison if you don't get an antidote in the next couple of hours. So then Howard Hessman runs in with all the cops and gets Wadsworth, and all the others are like, you need to get us to a hospital. We're poisoned. We need a cure. And Wadsworth is like, do you want me to show you how I did it? And Hessman's like, sure. And you think he's going to re-perform. Wadsworth runs out the door, locks it behind him, grabs a police car and drives away. So you think he got away with it. And then you hear the growling of one of those dogs.
Ah, the dogs.
He looks in the back seat of the car and one of the dogs leaps at him. And then we cut.
I mean, I would like to see it because I'd like to watch Tim Curry in this role.
Yeah, it would have been nice. As I understand is during that part, he's running around the house, yanking the phones out of the wall. They literally put Tim Curry on roller skates and like had him gliding past people as he's running from room to room. And yeah, this seems like it would have been Christopher Lloyd's chance to really shine in this ending, because I would think that the sleuth who outs Wadsworth would be Mr. Green. He's the one who does it in the everybody did it ending. But no, it's Professor Plum walking around telling everybody how Wadsworth killed everybody and revealing Wadsworth's master plan. So I regret not being able to see it, just to see Christopher Lloyd get the spotlight for a while. He's a really good part of the ensemble here, but he doesn't do anything to draw attention to his character that this ending it would have given to him. Unfortunately, there are scenes that were cut, and there's an ending that was cut, but because nobody gave a shit about this film after it flopped, nothing has ever come out on video. There's been no extra scenes released. When they were putting this out on Blu-ray, Lynn contacted, I think it's Sony, and said, hey, do you want me to do a commentary? And they said no. If you want a commentary, he ended up doing one for Kevin Smith's Smodcast. It used to be behind a paywall, but somebody's posted it to YouTube, so you can listen to Lynn's commentary on this film that Sony didn't care enough for him to do. Unfortunately, it's a pretty dry commentary, and there are long periods where he just goes back watching the film because he hadn't seen it in a while, so there's huge stretches of dead air. But it's out there.
Mm-hmm. The worst commentaries.
Yeah. And because it's, copyright, you can't even listen to the movie in between. It's just blank for like minutes at a time. And there's a moderator. The moderator should be there to like ask questions and keep the conversation going. But oh well. Not a great commentary, but is it a great movie? Justin, Stuart, do you recommend Clue? Justin.
I don't think it's any great mystery that I'm going to sit here and say this is a great movie and I recommend anybody watch it if you haven't seen it. Can't imagine that's a huge cross-section of people at this point. I mean, I think what amazes me the most is I remember the gimmick of this movie first and foremost. I know it didn't work out and give it a great box office, but it's a gimmick that, 40 years later still sticks in my mind as something that got me piqued my interest in this. So for that, I give him kudos. And the older I get, the more I appreciate this cast and the writing of this. Like I said earlier, it plays well for a younger crowd because of the frantic energy on screen. But as you age and you sit back and you want to pay more attention, there's a lot of great subtle comedy in here. And it really warms my heart that, going back and looking at this again, that there's a whole nother generation, a younger generation that has latched onto this movie too. 90s kids love this movie. I think 2000s kids love this movie. So I'm just glad that it's still out there and it's still part of the conversation that people have, because with the box office it had, it could have very easily just slipped away and nobody ever talked about it again. But, HBO, cable, video rentals saved this movie, and I'm glad we have it. I guess my big concern is as we kick off this board game series, did we hit our high watermark right out of the gate and it's just going to be all downhill from here? Clue's going to be a tough one to top. That's what I'll say. So yeah, it's an obvious recommend for me. I just hope it doesn't go completely off the board from here.
Stuart.
Yeah, I want to remind you, we started the video game retrospective with The King of Kong, which probably remains the best movie we covered in the video game retrospective. So yeah, maybe it will be hard to top Clue, but that's okay. We don't have to top Clue. Clue's great, and Clue is timeless. And Clue, the board game and the movie, get something essential for me about the appeal of the murder mystery. Again, I watch so many of them. I never figure them out. Here's the truth of it. It's not easy. Sometimes I watch these procedurals or whatever, and I'm like, you'll just have to tell me who did it, because if I'm supposed to figure this stuff out, I just can't process it that way. But the best ones hook you with the stylings, with the trappings, that there's a professor and a colonel, and they've got secrets, and the rooms and the secret passageways, cobwebs, paintings where the eyes move, all this kind of stuff. This is the stuff that I want to see. This is the stuff that makes it fun. It doesn't matter who did it. It never did. In Clue, it always changed when you played it. And in Clue, the movie, it's not the point. The magic lies in the electricity of the ensemble. And they have a great cast who, quite frankly, is funnier than the script itself. And they have, a director who keeps it lively, keeps it short. I forget how short this movie is, but even with the 3 endings, it's under 90 minutes. Short and sweet, and it delivers. I think everyone will appreciate the movie. And if you have any love for Agatha Christie, drawing room murder mysteries, the whole genre, this is a smart deconstruction that, probably the best board game movie ever made.
Well, that's what I posited when we wrote our book, so we'll see if that was true. To me, it's fascinating that just weeks after we reviewed Teen Wolf on the Donation series, a 1985 bomb, now we're tackling Clue. And what the tie? Teen Wolf was Michael J. Fox's first film after Back to the Future, and it did okay at the box office. It got a sequel, but was seen as a disappointment.
It was no bomb. It made $30 million.
And Clue was Christopher Lloyd's follow-up to Back to the Future, released just a couple months after Teen Wolf, and was a notorious flop. Yet, despite their struggles, I love both films. But in our Teen Wolf review, I acknowledged its flaws and admitted that 1985 had so many great movies. Back to the Future, Real Genius, Breakfast Club, Fletch, Fright Night. I said Teen Wolf wouldn't even be in my top 25. But Clue, it's not just in the top 25. It's definitely top 5, maybe top 2 for that year. It's really hard for me to choose between some of those. And unlike Teen Wolf, where I admit my enjoyment is mainly nostalgia, I think Clue's a genuinely brilliant murder mystery satire, and I think it's one of those rare films that works for all ages. When I first saw this and I was 11, I was enchanted by the manic energy, the slapstick humor, the lively score. I absolutely love the way the score choreographs Tim Curry's ending, like when he talks about the thunder crashing and brings the hand down, and it makes the cymbals crash at that time. The broad performances captivated me as a child, and I watched this a lot as a kid. But then I didn't watch it at all in the 90s. I don't think I saw it once during that time. I came back to it early in the 21st century as an adult, and when I saw it then, I was blown away by how tight the film is as a comedy. The rapid-fire dialogue packed with the clever innuendos that I didn't catch as a child, like, he lies on his back all day. Sounds like hard work to me, coming from the madam. This just feels sharper with every viewing, and everything's so fast that on each watch, I catch jokes I didn't catch on the previous one, but then I know I'm missing some jokes I caught on the previous one because I'm paying attention to the new ones. I think the cast is stellar, each actor perfectly chosen for their role, and the chemistry elevates the entire ensemble. They deliver peak comedic performances, but then spotlight on Tim Curry. As a child, he was my favorite, but as an adult, I'm literally awestruck by his brilliance in here. The energy he has at the end, the impeccable timing, his mimicry, and that climactic reenactment make his performance one of the greatest comedic turns in cinematic history. And now that may raise some eyebrows, thinking I'm being hyperbolic.
But you are.
I truly mean it. No matter how much of a cult following Clue has, that Curry's performance isn't lauded as one of the best in history means to me that this film is underrated. I'm really glad we put Clue in our underrated movies book, because no matter how much people love it, it deserves more love because Curry is in it. Now, I do admit the film has its flaws. The multiple endings prevent it from being a true whodunit, as I mentioned.
Not a flaw.
Continuity issues arise depending on the ending.
Not a flaw.
I think the second time they split up is a bit of a lull before the big crescendo of the climax. But those quirks don't diminish the sheer joy of this movie. Comedic gem that's endlessly entertaining. Strongest of recommend. And yes, like Justin, this means all the board games are going to be great, right?
No, of course it means that none of them will compare. And they don't, but there are other recommends in here. I can at least say that. I know of at least one movie that I'm going to give a green arrow to.
I know of at least one as well. I know one I will. And I know a couple that I'm giving red arrows to. But we'll get there. But you mentioned, Justin, talk of a reboot or a sequel of this. It's been talked about forever. I think that's part of the reason it took us so long to get to covering it, is they keep saying the remake is happening. The last I heard, Ryan Reynolds was attached to a remake of it.
Yep.
But I think if you do it, you don't remake Clue 1985, right? You just readapt the board game. You don't have a Wadsworth. You don't put it in the 50s. You find a new way to tackle the game that's completely original.
Yeah, the game's kind of baked into that time period, right? It's got to be between the 20s and the 50s. Like, to have a modern day, they're going to pull out cell phones. They're going to go to the billiard room in 2025. No, that makes no sense.
They sort of did it. I don't know if you watched the series Psych. I was not a viewer of Psych, but I went to Peacock and watched one episode. Kind of funny. I went to Mrs. Peacock so I could watch this episode of Psych. Psych did a Clue movie homage episode.
Yeah, they were big on that. They did a lot of things that they loved. They spoofed.
I know they did one for Twin Peaks. They got Martin Mull and Christopher Lloyd and Lesley Ann Warren, who she's doing cameos, so she wasn't busy. But they all got there, and they did a mansion murder mystery with also Garrett Morris was in it as the butler. And they even did multiple endings. They did like a live call-in thing during the show's airing, and depending which ending got the most views, that ending was aired on the East Coast. Then a second ending was aired for the West Coast, and a third ending was put on the DVD release. I only got to see one of the 3 endings. That's all Peacock had. But yeah, they actually just started by saying, we're taking your phones and locking them in a cabinet, much like they locked the weapons in a cabinet in Clue, and had this kind of in-a-house murder mystery with the guys from Psych.
Okay, that's not solving the problem of remaking, sequelizing, keeping it contemporary. One, I just want to say the board game lives on, but it has so many weird, interpretations. Like, you could play these games and no one even gets murdered. It's like Big Bang Theory Clue, and it's just weird.
Golden Girls, where somebody eats the last piece of cheesecake.
Right.
Yeah, in 2008, they updated this game to be more modern, and Miss Scarlett became Cassandra Scarlett, a tabloid featured actress. Colonel Mustard is Jack Mustard, a NFL player. Professor Plum is Victor Plum, a billionaire video game designer. Maybe you just make those into a movie.
We could talk about it. I read the comic book that came out 5 years ago.
Oh, I didn't know there was a comic.
Yeah, there's a graphic novel intended for adults. I feel like the idea of a murder happening even gets away. What do you do? I think if you want the closest, beyond that Psych episode, the closest experience to this is the VCR games that came out the same year, actually. They didn't even know they were making the sequel, but Clue jumped to the VCR. This is the new device everyone is bringing home for Christmas. Why don't you play games with your VCR, VHS? And I had the second one. There were 2 issues of it, but they basically require actors to dress up as these characters, and you watch what they do and try to deduce in the ways that you would the board game.
I got this game. It came out in 85.
The first one did.
Yeah, it was a big hit too. And they made a short documentary about this where you could see even the promotional reel Parker Brothers made for the stores that's like, the new home video system VCRs, 17 million units were shipped in 1983. We are now ready to bring the next era of gaming. Well, I remember this coming out, these VCR games in 85. They were around $40.
Yeah. They were.
So that was way outside of my budget as a kid.
$10 more than an Atari cartridge.
And Atari was dead by 85.
I guess so, yeah.
I mean, it died with the E.T. game in 82, 83 and never came back.
I was playing Coleco until around this time.
But it wasn't selling. The video game market had crashed. And that's why in 85, this game hit and hit hard. It sold a lot. But by the time I got it, I'd moved to Florida. It was 1987. I'd liked the movie Clue. This was in a clearance bin for like $10. And so I picked it up. I can say I never played the game because I just moved to Florida. I had no friends to play a game with. I just had this, but I watched the tape endlessly. I'd watch Clue the movie on VHS, and then I'd watch Clue the VCR game on VHS just a lot because it was a funny story about everyone coming together to read Mr. Body's will and all these archetypes of characters and some truly funny lines.
This is what I'm saying. It's almost legit like a sequel, except it's like community theater. Unfortunately, you don't have Martin Mull. You don't have Madeline Kahn. The comedy timing is not good. And the production quality, particularly I didn't have the first game, but yeesh! It looks awful. Very low grade video. It's just mushy and gross. They had more money to do the sequel, and that was the one I owned. I did actually play it as a game once. I couldn't convince people to play VCR games though. I got the family together for it. They were classics. They wanted the board game. They didn't want to play with the VCR in the same way.
I'm not even sure how that works. Does it tell you to fast forward to a certain timestamp, or do you just watch it straight through?
You watch a scene, and then it comes up and says, stop the game, do a round of interrogations, where you pull cards, and it's in scene 2, the person was killed in the room with the parquet floor. And so you had to pay attention to the scene and be like, oh, which room had the parquet floor?
So just to be clear, there's 10 scenarios. You can only play the game 10 times. And in each one, they're going to give you clues about, in that particular mystery, who the killer might be.
All right.
So $40 10 times, not a bargain.
And I remember after watching the first one, I still quote the first one to this day. When I am in a rainstorm, I'll turn to my wife and go, it's like the monsoons of Sumatra. And of course, in my mind, I'm hearing, do you remember that summer in Sumatra? I was never in Sumatra. And my wife has no clue what the hell I'm talking about with the monsoons of Sumatra.
Most don't, yeah.
But I'm quoting Clue. This is available in full on YouTube. It's just about an hour, and 10 minutes of it is the butler did it, who is explaining how to play the game. But that first one was done pretty cheap. All these actors were Boston theater. Parker Brothers was Boston based. The director had done commercials for Parker Brothers. They're like, you directed those kids playing a game. You can direct this game for us. But it sold so well, they made part 2. They did up the budget. They had more sets.
For sure.
They did it on film instead of video.
Yes, you can tell.
But I never liked the sequel as much because I felt like the story wasn't as cohesive. It was just them running place to place. Keep in mind, I'm not playing this as a game.
I know.
I'm just watching it as a movie. And the second one felt far more skit-based and less grounded, dare I say. And yeah, that second game, it came out in 87. And that was after Nintendo came out. So the 1985 game really hit in that moment right where Nintendo hadn't hit the States yet, but Atari was dead in the States. And by the time 1987 rolled around, I can't believe it took them 2 years to make the follow-up. It's the same game. It's just a different VHS tape to play with it. And by then, everybody, including me, wanted a Nintendo. So I ended up getting that game on clearance much later for, $5, $7. And maybe that's why I'm just not as attached to it, as I got it so much later, and I just don't think the sketches are as funny. I really liked the plot of that first Clue game. The whole reading of Mr. Body's will and who is his love child. And the second one never had any of that. It just felt too derivative, even for Clue.
Okay, but I want to be clear. Even though the idea seems to be, let's make these games kind of like the movie. Well, they didn't see the movie, but I think they knew what the movie was trying to be, Murder by Death. They were trying to be funny in that way. It does not compare. You would not enjoy it. It is a not recommend to watch those VCR games as comedy.
Oh, absolutely. I rewatched both of them to reminisce, and while I enjoyed going back, I would give both of them not recommends as viewing experiences. They only are good as nostalgia items.
Yeah, so what do you do? What I see where Clue is in trying to do multimedia from this point is it for kids or is it for adults? Do we make an adult comedy like Clue, which again had a limited box office run, or do we just, there's things like Clue Jr. and all of that. Kids are the ones that play board games. Adults don't play board games anymore. So you just make stupid kid things like a movie we almost covered. I kind of had to talk Arnie out of it, but he was like, are you aware that in 2011 they made a TV miniseries in which a bunch of kids, it's kind of like a Da Vinci Code thing. There's like the House of Plum and it's just awful. The review is strong, not recommend, but it's clearly not even made for me, right? It's a Nickelodeon show in training, and maybe if you were a kid, you would want to watch it. I don't know.
See, I didn't know about this series, is what I guess we'll call it. It was a mini series, 5 parts.
It was on the Hub. No one watched it.
I'd never even heard of the Hub or this series until I started researching Clue for this review. And it turned out Shout Factory had taken the episodes and cut them together into a 100-minute movie. And so I'm like, they put it out as a movie. Do we need to cover it?
No.
I was kind of one way or another. And so I decided I'd watch it and just mention it here. This thing is incomprehensible.
And unfunny.
You say Da Vinci Code. Yeah, maybe, but it hits the ground running so fast that I'm like, when they edited this into a movie, did they cut stuff? Because it's like these characters are thrown together, the murder has happened, we're 5 minutes into this, the credits haven't even rolled, and now all these people are already investigating a murder, but they don't know each other.
There's no murder. They're kids. Nobody got murdered.
Yeah, it turns out there's not even a murder.
Clue Jr. Nobody's going to get hurt.
And so I ended up finding the series was on Tubi for free. So I rewatched part 1 on Tubi to see if there was stuff cut out. No, this is just ill-paced. The whole thing, it feels so long. I couldn't believe it was less than 2 hours experience, where it's a bunch of tweens dealing with a conspiracy dating back to Nikolai Tesla and an Illuminati-like underground society.
The candlestick is like some kind of electrical device, MacGuffin thing. Yeah, they really bastardized Clue. Like, there's everything that you loved about the setup completely gone. Again, I think it is Da Vinci Code, which also, just a review for a movie I hope we never cover, totally nonsense as a film. Makes no sense from start to finish in that case as well. Just absurdity. And the fact that you have bad Canadian kids doing it just makes it worse.
They also tried to make it the Breakfast Club, because they were throwing together, they were all about to be expelled from school, and they even say it's the jock, the gossip, the bleeding heart, the flirt, the loser, and the brain.
They didn't really try to do the Breakfast Club, but they say that, yes. But there's no attempt at even teen drama like that. It's very poor.
There's something about how, like, the flirt falls for the brain, but the brain believes he's just permanently friend-zoned with all women. There's some drama going on there, but truthfully, it was incomprehensible. I couldn't follow it. If this was made for kids, maybe a hyperactive child's brain could follow it, but I literally couldn't dissect that without 2 more watchings. I couldn't sit here and do a now playing episode on this because it makes no freaking sense. There's so many twists and turns in each episode that at the end I was left with spaghetti.
Again, you could say that about the 85 movie, but it was a comedy and who cares? This was not trying to be funny, did not have a body in a room that they were trying to solve the murder of.
I don't know exactly if I expected any better though, because the TV series was written by the master scribe behind the movie Elektra.
Yeah, it makes about that much sense. Again, is this what you do? They do have a whole series of kids' books for decades. The 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. They've tried to write little kids and tween fiction surrounding Clue characters and Clue scenarios. That's one way to go, or then you try to do something for adults. And I think, like I mentioned, that this graphic novel where they try to weave in the fact that, there's a rapper, there's an opioid crisis, there's a guy price fixing medicine. Yeah, Mr. Green is like the guy that jacked up the price of insulin. They try to be very topical and hit all of those things that only adults would care about. Hence, no kids allowed. And it just ends up being also inscrutable. Again, no fun. So you can read this adult comic book, or you could go to the theater and see it, where there's 2 incarnations. You can either do what it sounds like they wanted to do originally, which is a musical where at the beginning audience members are pulled out, they pluck out the cards, and the play is adjusted to whatever they pick. They decide in that moment who the murder weapon is, who the culprit is, where it happens. Still more or less the same play night after night, but, it's one speech at the end that changes. A funny musical for adults, or they've actually just now turned this movie into a play where you can just watch people perform this screenplay tweaked a little bit and done as a stage play for adults. Again, kids aren't going to want to go to that. Is there a way to bring those audiences together? I don't know.
I think it's interesting that Deborah Hill first envisioned this as a play that would become a movie, and it ended up becoming a movie that then people adapted into a play.
Well, they adapt everything. Every movie is going to be a play, a Broadway musical at some point, but not a particularly good one. They're out there on YouTube. I've watched it, and it doesn't help that some of these are community theater productions that aren't very zesty, but I just don't think the music's very good. I don't think the comedy's very good. And Clue more and more just feels like a special moment in time that had to fail in 1985 to become this beloved, cherished cinematic touchstone in 2025.
I mean, I get the impetus, though. I mean, this screenplay and the plot and everything, it's written like a play, and you could very easily have 4 sets and have them running around, and it plays out in almost real time. So, yeah, I can see it working as a play, but you got to get the right cast.
Yeah, Agatha Christie, a lot of her books became plays, Mousetrap and what have you. I do feel like, again, the temptation to come back to Clue and make it new again, to make it the success it should have been, is always going to be high. But I think it's the temptation you don't follow. I imagine bad things if people try to remake it again. But in trying to update it, to take it away from what it was in 85, I don't think there is another way to do it. I honestly can't imagine a satisfying Clue that doesn't recapture what they did in the comedy movie. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah. If you would have done it 5 years ago at the height of it, I would have said maybe set it in an escape room environment and then maybe turn it real, so it could be themed to be old, but in modern day.
Yeah. Game Night? What wasn't that Jason Bateman movie?
Sure, yeah, something like that.
Kind of had sort of that vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, it was okay, but it's not Clue.
No, I think leave well enough alone. I think we're going to prove, much like we have with the video game retrospective, maybe board games shouldn't be adapted into movies. Maybe we'll discover that next week when we cover Battleship.
I am so excited. I've never seen it. I don't know how I've not seen it, but I am a connoisseur of bad movies. And I remember, like everyone else, just guffawing that they dared to take that cute little kids game about sinking battleships and turning it into this $200 million extravaganza Michael Bay Transformers movie. Yeah, I can't wait.
I live tweeted my first watching of it for Now Playing in 2012. I remember getting it on streaming. It is permanently in my iTunes library because I purchased it when it was a new digital release.
Okay.
And I watched and tweeted with Marjorie my viewing of Battleship. So I'll say this, it ain't no Clue.
No, well, definitely not going to be Clue. But it's not Casablanca either. And this Friday, for February patrons, getting ready for Valentine's Day, we covered Gone with the Wind a few years ago. Seems right that we should cover the companion piece, the movie that we have that debate. Which one is better? Casablanca, Gone with the Wind. We hope to solve that this Friday for February patrons only.
Yes, that is going to be available to patrons of $10 or more through Spotify, through Patreon, through Apple, or through Podbean. That's the only way to hear the over 100 bonus reviews you can get for just $10 a month. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't pledge and hear this review, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon, and for the rest of your life. So head to Now Playing's Patreon page, patreon.com/nowplayingpodcast. Links are from our homepage. And join up to hear us talk about what is considered the greatest movie of all time. And thank you so much for your support of our show. We couldn't keep going without you. So Justin, Stuart, thank you for joining me. And now it's time to pick up the pieces and go home.
Shut me in! I'll book you for false arrest and wrongful imprisonment and obstructing an officer in the course of his duty and murder!
What do you mean, murder?
Thank you for listening to this Now Playing Podcast movie review.
And this conversation is being tape recorded.
Point of order, tape recordings are not admissible evidence.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
No.
Well, actually, yes.
No.
There seemed to be some kind of disagreement.
No.
Yes.
Help us spread the word about this show by leaving a 5-star review on Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, or your podcast store of choice.
But if I wasn't trying to keep the conversation going, then we would just be sitting here in an embarrassed silence.
Want more reviews like this one? In the archives section of NowPlayingPodcast.com, you'll find more than 1,000 in-depth movie reviews from our panel of hosts.
Let us in! Let us in! Let us out! Let us out!
On our site, you can hear reviews for every installment in the world's biggest film franchises, including the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star Wars, Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, James Bond, Middle-earth, Jurassic Park, Fast and Furious, and Transformers.
Brilliantly worked out, Wadsworth. I congratulate you.
Me too.
Shut up!
Plus, we have individual movie reviews, such as Titanic, E.T., Inception, Big Hero 6, Ready Player One, Pulp Fiction, Apocalypse Now, Doctor Strangelove, and hundreds more.
I don't think you should go in there.
Why not?
Because it's all too shocking.
And come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com next Tuesday for another all-new movie review podcast.
Will you stop that? No.
Support from listeners like you keeps Now Playing Podcast on the air.
I enjoy getting presents from strange men.
You can donate directly by tapping the support button at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
Ours not the reason why, ours what to do and die. Die.
And you can join our crowdfunding campaign for early access to new episodes, exclusive reviews, and bonus reviews available for a one-time contribution.
He decided to put his information to good use and make a little money out of it. What could be more American than that?
Need more Now Playing? Subscribe to our In Focus weekly newsletter for exclusive digital download giveaways, celebrity interviews, behind-the-scenes insights, and more. Sign up through the subscribe page on our website and get it delivered to your inbox every Friday.
How can you make jokes at a time like this?
It's my defense mechanism.
Some defense. If I was the killer, I would kill you next.
You can also compare notes with us on Letterboxd. Go to letterboxd.com/nowplaying.
That's what we call overkill. What we call a psychotic.
And follow Now Playing on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel.
This is war, Peacock! Casualties are inevitable. You cannot make an omelet without breaking eggs. Every cook will tell you that.
But look what happened to the cook!
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife.
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
Well, he just lies around on his back all day.
Sounds like hard work to me.
Now Playing is edited by Heath and Arnie.
I keep everything tidy. That's all.
Now Playing credits read by Brock.
There's no need to shout. I'm not shouting. All right, I am. I'm shouting. I'm shouting.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the views of Venganza Media Incorporated.
No, sorry. I said no meaning yes. No meaning yes? Look, I want a straight answer. Is there someone else or isn't there? Yes or no? No. No, there is or no, there isn't? Yes.
Venganza Media Incorporated is not affiliated with, and this podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by any entity that created the film analyzed herein.
Can you keep a secret? Yes. Second on it.
All movie clips and music included in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purpose of review, and no infringement is intended.
Officer.
You're too late. I've seen it all.
You have? I can explain everything.
You don't have to.
I don't?
Don't worry. There's nothing illegal about any of this.
Are you sure?
Of course. This is America.
I see.
It's a free country. Don't you know that?
I didn't know it was that free.
Now Playing Podcast is an exclusive trademark of and may not be used without the express written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
And to make a long story short,
Too late!
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2025, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated. All rights reserved.
Wadsworth, don't hate me for trying to shoot you.
frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn.
I am your singing telegram.
they brought in, let me get this name right. I want to be sure I'm getting this name right. Just give me 1 second.
While we're waiting, I just want to point out Arnie used the phrase discovered Christopher Columbus a little bit ago.
Yeah, that's funny.
But Clue, it's not just in the top 25. It's definitely top 5, maybe top 2 for that year. It's really hard for me to choose between some of those.
Over Out of Africa?
I've never seen that.
Nobody likes that movie. How did that win Best Picture? God, that just still drives me crazy.
I have never seen it.
And you are better for it.